This vulnerability allows an unauthenticated attacker to run arbitrary code on any DD-WRT device. Welcome to this episode of CVE Deep Dive. I'm your host Zanidd, and today we're taking a look at a buffer overflow vulnerability in router and access point firmware. This attack abuses the UPNP protocol and the fact that an unbound copy from the user provided data is copied into a buffer limited to a certain size. But first, what even is DD-WRT? Except a very complicated name to say out loud. DD-WRT is a Linux-based firmware for routers and access points. If UPNP is enabled, this attack becomes possible. UPNP stands for Universal Plug and Play. It's a set of network protocols that allow an easy discovery of devices in a network, as well as providing service to those. Devices like personal computers, access points, internet gateways, printers can be easily discovered and establish a connection between them. That connection can be used for data sharing, communication and entertainment and more. The problem with this protocol is it's unauthenticated and it's running over UDP, which means that there's no way to enforce authentication on the protocol. So if an attacker is present in a LAN where this DD-WRT device with UPNP enabled is sitting, they can use this protocol and attack the machine. However, if measures such as ASLR are in place, which stands for Address Space Layout Randomization, the exploitability of this vulnerability becomes a little bit harder. Now, the essential part of this vulnerability is that it's basically a buffer overflow attack. The vulnerability has been found by reviewing the source code of the ssd-secure file, which contains an unbound copy from user-provided data that is copied into a buffer. And that's one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to use strcpy, but instead want to use strncpy. But let's take a look how this vulnerability can be exploited. First of all, the UPNP service has to be enabled on the DD-WRT control panel. If UPNP is disabled like it is by default, this vulnerability would not be possible. So if you want to try this at home, you have to enable it first. Then you have to run a buffer overflow attack over the network by sending a malicious payload over a packet. As you can see, this proof of concept script is a pretty standard buffer overflow attack script which contains a return address, an offset, and the target IP. The vulnerable field in question here is the UUID. So we set the UUID to be our malicious payload and overflow it so that we get an exception. Since this proof of concept script doesn't contain any address to important gadgets, it will just crash the UPNP service. However, if an attacker is able to find the right address and overwrite that one, they are able to run any code they like for example shell code, so they get basically a shell on the system and can run any command or code that they like. As always, you can find the full advisory down below in the description. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe and ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on all our CVE deep dive episodes. See you next time. Bye bye.